Today, we're going to talk a little bit about health journeys, body changes, signs and symptoms, what to do when you recognize them, or maybe how to start recognizing them. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this because in one of my last podcasts, I talked a little bit about the journey that I was going to start. And I figured, I talked to my clients about making changes and doing things differently, and I have been putting off doing some of that myself. So I want to, share some of that process. And I am currently now waiting on results of tests that I have taken, and so it's probably going to be several weeks before before those results are processed and then I get the results. So I won't be hearing anything, but that just got me thinking a little bit about, recognizing your body and knowing kind of what's going on. And for me, I would say that journey started 10 to 15-ish years ago. I don't exactly know when I really started. It was at least 10 years ago. Somewhere in between the 10 and 15 years. And it was before I started having kids, but really after I was married. And, it started with things like when I would get sinus infections all the time. And they would just last. Like I would have a sinus infection for a month. My nose would be raw from like blowing my nose all the time. And, I eventually would give in and take antibiotics, and poof, it would be gone. But over time, I started to realize, and I don't know how I made that connection, but I would take vitamin C, and vitamin C in high doses would make the sinus infection just go away. And so at some point in, my younger adult years, probably I vaguely recall being in grad school, and I would just take, lots and lots of vitamin C. When I say lots and lots, I'm not talking 2,000 milligrams in a day. I'm talking, 10 to 15,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving anybody here medical advice, but often when I'm talking to my friends or my family and they're talking about having some, cold symptoms, vitamin C is one of the first things that I recommend. And it's because I've had positive experiences with that. And so, I can't remember the last time I took an antibiotic. And if I, did, it's because I'm still learning, and there are certain illnesses and things that come up where I'm, I don't necessarily know how to treat it naturally. I'm asking, I'm looking, and sometimes, if you let something go too long, you may need something like an antibiotic potentially, or you just may need to know the right path to take, and I don't always know that. I'm still learning. But anyway, you would take vitamin C throughout the day. I wouldn't take all of that at once, and you usually take it from what I've learned, is what we call bowel tolerance. And so that's when you start to experience some like gastro stuff, whether that's diarrhea or constipation or gas. When you start to get that, that's your cue, like, okay, my body's had enough. I can maybe back off. from whatever amount I was taking. And again, I'm not telling you what you should do, but that's what has worked for me. Now, it doesn't necessarily make everything just, miraculously go away, but it has limited symptoms. And for me, over time, as I've gotten rid of things in my life, as I have made changes, I can notice those body symptoms a lot faster than I used to be able to. So what can happen when our body is in toxic overload, we don't necessarily notice that the things we are taking and the things that we are doing are actually hurting us, or like that they actually don't feel good. A good example of this would be soda or pop or whatever you call it. I would drink that, like a lot of people, all the time. Maybe not every day, but definitely if we went out, I'd be getting a cherry Coke. Cherry Coke is my favorite, or a Pepsi, or, something. And, it tasted good. It was sugar. It was addicting. I know all these things now. I'm still have a problem with sugar. That's a big issue for me. But I've gotten a lot better, and I can tell now when it doesn't make me feel well. I can tell when to stop, or if I've had enough. Because my body is just like, oh, like I don't want that. And so that surprises even me. But when I slowly started to get rid of soda and I wouldn't drink it anymore, if I would have it, now if I do have it, I can tell right away that that was a mistake. So my body is saying, give me some, I just want that soda. So I'll get it, and I'll have, and I'll have a few sips, or maybe more than a few sips. And then, I would say within a few minutes, I am like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. The mouth thinks, yes, this is amazing. But the body goes, shouldn't have done that. You're going to regret that. And I do. So I have personally noticed that. I know my husband has talked about noticing that when we take certain things away that we're just used to, and then we try to put it back, we try to do it again, your body, like those warning signs come up, and they're like, whoa, hold on, cowboy, we don't want that anymore. Please don't take that. And so pay attention to that. So it's, when we say pay attention to your body, sometimes it takes a lot of, you got to look internally, you got to feel internally, or you got to not have something and be able to experience what life is like without that. So then when you try it again, you're going to know. Same thing can be like with coping skills, or recognizing feelings in your body, like body sensations, or recognizing emotions. Talking about that with clients, and some clients really struggle with being able to recognize what an emotion is, or what a body sensation is, or what to call things, because they just don't know. So a lot of it is education for themselves. And, how do I label that thing, that little thing I do, that jitteriness that happens? When is that happening? Am I paying attention? Or do I just know it happens? Is it happening all the time? Because I'll hear that. Well, this is constant. Okay. Well, is it really constant? Or are there times where that jittery feeling is not happening? So let's pay attention to that. And what's going on in those moments where that jitteriness is away, is not around? And what's the difference? What is, when it's not around versus what it is around? What's going on there? And that's how we're going to help you, to heal some of those maybe more psychological things, that anxiety type of reactions. It's being able to tell what's going on inside of you, and when it's happening, and what triggers it. And for body and chemicals and things we're putting in it, it's the same thing. For me, I've only ever gotten my nails gotten the fake nails on, I would say less than, 10 times in my entire life. I think twice with the old school way, not the gel, was like where they scrape down your nails and put all those chemicals. And the very first time, it was like extremely painful. My nail beds hurt, my fingers hurt, like I needed Tylenol to help my hands not hurt after that. It was miserable. So, I think I only did that one other time, maybe 2 other times, I can't remember. And then the gel polish, I've gotten that done a handful of times or so, or maybe more, I don't know. But what I've noticed over the years is that as I've transitioned into a more, natural lifestyle, is that when I get those types of nail products, if I get nail polish just from the store that's not one of the healthier nail polish that is like, -5 or -10 or -12 or whatever, those are like the top chemicals that they use in your nail polish. If I use any of those, within a week or two of wearing the nail polish, my nails will be peeling, chipping, breaking. Right now, I have pretty long nails, and I would say they're pretty healthy. And so I have to buy specific nail polish where I don't have that happen. If I use a nail polish and my nails start to do that within a few weeks, I have to toss the nail polish because I know I've got the wrong kind. It has something in it that my body does not like, and my nails will tell me. I was trying to think of other examples of things where I have recognized that. I've been, one of the reasons I've been wanting to get some of these other tests done is just I know there's something off, but I don't know what that off thing is. For me, I get a lot of like bloating. And so it's like trying to pay attention to, well, when is it happening? Am I eating certain foods where that happens? Is it, a certain time of the month? Is it when I'm under a certain type of stress? So for me, I'm just trying to notice some of those things on top of getting some additional tests that may tell me what changes I need to make in order to make those symptoms improve as well. So one of the tests I got was like the overall blood test. So it's testing all kinds of, I'm getting all kinds of things tested. I think it's called like your CBC, that's your normal. And then there were additional things on top of that, looking at some of my hormones and thyroid and other numbers that are just going to give some indication as to if there's any underlying issues that maybe we need to do further testing, or if there's other things we need to explore. I got what's called a stool test. So it's not, super fun. You get to go to the bathroom in a little like dish, and then you get to use a little tool, and you get to, pick some of it out and put it in a little tube and shake the little tube up, and then you send that tube off, and then they're going to do a bunch of tests on it to see what's going on in your gut, right? So what's coming out of you is going to tell the lab a lot about what is going on inside you. So I often talk a lot about that with my clients, and understanding like what's going on in your gut. We can talk trauma, we can talk coping skills, we can talk depression, anxiety, and all of that all we want, but it's not going to heal your gut. Okay. So I know some tips and tricks and things that I could encourage my clients to do where they're not necessarily getting testing, and that may help, but also that's just throwing a lot of guesses. That's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like we can try all these things, but ultimately a test, in my opinion, is going to give you some answers and explore some things that are going on inside of you so that the things that you're doing on the outside can have an effect on that. So that's going to look at like your gut microbiome. So is the bacteria, is it a good balance between the good and the bad, right? You still need both. We obviously typically want more good bacteria, but is it like an overabundance? We have an overabundance of like good bacteria, because that's also not good. Do we have any candida? Or that's a yeast growing in your gut, parasites. It may be able to tell, it can tell what you are digesting or not digesting, right? So if there's certain things in your stool that maybe shouldn't be there because your body should have digested it, well, then that's going to say, hey, there's some process going on inside where your body isn't able to digest and process certain nutrients as it should. And so we need to explore that. Infection, I believe it can tell if there's like infection. There's probably some other things that it's looking at where it can tell like what's going on inside your gut. And then I also got a hair mineral analysis. So my hair is straight. It's usually curly and I don't have to do anything to it, but it needed to be, clean and dry with, no products in it. I don't really use a lot of products. I use like a natural, they call it a hair lotion. And I usually just do that and scrunch my hair, and like I leave the house with it wet and it dries in an hour or so. But I did use a hair dryer to dry it so I could cut some hair off. Actually, my husband helped me cut my hair off because it's hard to see yourself cutting hair and all of that. So we took some hair from all around my scalp and we sent that in, and they will analyze that to see, what my mineral levels are at inside, and what, I'm not getting, should be getting, maybe have too much of. And so then again, I can change my diet or take certain supplements that are going to help with that and help me, get some of my balance more correct. And these are things that you can do. There are many providers out there who can do testing. Your medical doctor, your like primary care family doctor potentially can do these things. The test that I am doing is through a nutritionist and is through different labs, and they usually have them as like almost like a kit. So you there's a bunch of different tests being run on the blood that you're submitting, or the stool, or the hair, or whatever you're submitting, or saliva. Whereas the doctor's office, it's typically like, well, what do you want to test? Do you want to get your, this one estrogen, or your TSH, or do you want to get, your liver enzymes, or, it's not like a whole kit, like, hey, this test covers, like 25 things. So if you choose this one, we're going to test all 25. So what I do is I'll typically look up one of these examples of one of these tests, and I may talk to my client about how they can, talk to their doctor about the tests that are in, this certain kit, and see, 'cause maybe their doctor can get that covered by their insurance versus going to an outside provider to have them, tested, which likely would not be covered under your insurance. And so that is a barrier to treatment. And it, because it is pretty expensive. So, I definitely understand that, and why, testing sometimes needs to be done in your own way, and why we talk about other things that you can do to kind of assist in that process, or to make some, changes in your life that you don't necessarily have to have testing for, but will have a positive effect. So I've talked before on here about removing, certain chemicals and certain exposures from your life. And as you do that, you'll probably notice that you feel better. I, for instance, used to love, Bath and Body Works products. I, love going candle shopping. You could ask my husband when they had their like candle sale, or their lotions and their sprays and their body washes. We would go in and we would get the certain ones when they were on sale, and buy 3, get 3, and all of that. I can't stand those products. I can walk into a house and I can smell them. If you have an air freshener, I will probably unplug it. Sorry. If you have a candle and it's really strong, I may or may not blow it out when you're away. Or I might ask if we can not have it while I'm there. Or I might have to step out and get some fresh air, because I definitely feel the effects of those chemicals on my body and like my brain, and I don't like it because I've removed them from my life. So when I do smell them, I don't like them. It doesn't make me feel good. And there's all kinds of reasons why, and maybe we'll talk about that again in the future, but it is in some past episodes where I talk about some of those things that are in those products. But some slow things you can start to do is just remove certain things from your life. Maybe it's things that you've been told are bad for you. Maybe it's things that you question, like, I don't always feel good after I eat ice cream. Maybe try not eating it for a month and just see, do you feel better? Something you eat on a regular basis. If you just remove it and see, what do you feel like when you aren't having that? That may give you an answer. Now, it's maybe a slower way of doing that, but it's also going to tell you something. And then you may be able to notice that when you reintegrate it into your life, you may notice what your body's telling you. And that's what I want you to do, is just notice. Do I get gas? Do I get rumblies? Do I feel full for too long? Do I, when I go to the bathroom, what is that like? Am I constipated? Am I not? Am I having regular bowel movements? The food that you eat is going to have an effect on that. It's going to have an effect on your mood. If you have acid reflux, you're not digesting your food well. If you're not digesting your food well, you're not going to, for example, create enough serotonin. If you don't have enough serotonin, you're going to feel potentially depressed. So like just a simple issue as acid reflux can have that domino effect of like, how your mood, what your mood is. So if you've never thought about that, I encourage you to think about those things. If you're watching this and you are interested in seeing a therapist that talks about those things, I'd be happy to talk to you about those things. If you have a client that maybe would like to talk about those things and kind of go down that path, I may be a good fit for that. So, thanks for listening and joining me today. And just know that, you're not the only people I encourage to do this. I am also doing it myself. And hopefully, I'll get some answers and be able to make changes and feel better myself along with you. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoy my Christmas sweater. I'm an elf today. I will see you again next week.